Welcome everyone again. Thanks for joining us for the November edition of the Patch Tuesday Support Group, where we're here just to kind of have a good time and support each other. And patching happens, and we have to deal with it. And so that's what we're going to do. As usual, we'll start off with my good friend Jordan Benzing, who is suited up for the occasion. He's going to talk about some the actual releases of the patches that come out this week. There are actually some real doozies in there, so his take might take longer than normal. I'm going to do what I usually do, talk about some news in our industry, and George Williams, who will introduce more deeply later, talk about a new little fun tool we've released. And Jake is unleashing some new hell on us with his avatar, and he will be monitoring the chat. So use the chat, not the QA, and Jake will heckle us as we go along. So with that introductions done, I hand it over to Jordan. Wow us.
All right. So good, everybody's favorite time of the year, the time of the year when we suddenly get like a whole bunch of vulnerabilities all right before the holiday season, guaranteed to result in a good time for everybody, right? So let's start off with a couple of them. The very first thing is we had 5 0-day fixes that came out earlier this week from Microsoft. Some of them worse than others, and 6 if you want to cry about kind of a re-update to the joys that is curl. So for those of you who don't know, I'm going to talk about this one first just because of the fact that it directly and indirectly impacts patching as a whole. So if you didn't know, there was a vulnerability last month in the October round of patches called CVE 2023-3845. Again, that is CVE 2023-38545. I'm going to go ahead and grab that here and paste it in the chat for everybody who's paying along. And the big reason why this one is so important is that, and for all of the security people who are out there, please stop doing this. There's this strange trend sometimes that when a vulnerability first comes out and there's no fix for it, we start looking for good ideas that aren't good ideas on how to fix it or how to try and solve it. And so what's happened is there's been a large number of people who said, I know how I'll solve the problem of curl. I'll delete curl from the machines. Therefore, the machine is no longer vulnerable. The problem is the Windows update leverages curl to like download stuff for updates. So does PowerShell. And so we now have people who have ended up in a situation where they can't get updates to update to fix the vulnerability in curl. We saw this happen before back with WannaCry and a few other things back before where people decided like, oh goodness, WannaCry spreads over port 445. We should totally block that. You know what else uses port 445? Things like, AD authentication and stuff. Like don't do that. So in general, just be aware this came out. Be aware if you've got security teams out there like that, if it's curl or if you've taken actions against it, there are some WDAC policies that you can leverage to prevent it. But go out, patch it. They do officially have a patch now for it that to get you up to 8.4.0. And just kind of be aware of that going along the way. Yes, removing the Ethernet cable is a valid solution. Let's move on to a couple more.
To be clear, Jordan, like just blocking it though, right? Like you say WDAC, but
yeah.
If you blocked it, is that not almost as effective as just deleting the thing?
No. So WDAC actually allows, there's some policy components of it that you can change and restrict what can or can't. There's some other components of that. And Microsoft actually provided a little descriptor there of how you can enable it, turn it on, and what you can do in terms of the configuration of like what it's allowed to do and how it's allowed to do it. So there's a little more granularity involved as opposed to just, I don't know, ripping the entire thing out.
Right.
Well, and I'd imagine it's denying it via WDAC. It makes it easy to just turn it back on later, as opposed to full blown reinstall.
It's trying to like restoring a file. Yep.
Right. But what you're saying is like you're not putting a blanket block on it. You have to be a little more careful to make sure that the specific things can continue to use it. Okay, that's what I was just wanted to clarify.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, so I'm going to jump to another one here, and this one is CVE 2023-36025. Again, that is CVE 2023-36025. I'm going to go ahead
bingo cards. We really need to do bingo cards.
We do. We absolutely should. So this one is a fun one. This is a kind of important one to take a look at. First things first, exploitation is functional and has been seen as active in the wild. If you are unfamiliar with CVEs joys, that basically means that that's the fancy way of couching that is like, hey, people are actively already seeing this get abused out there in certain types of scenarios. The big reason why I kind of want to put this one up here as a big one on your radar is this is a network-based attack. It can be serviced over the network to gain remote control of a device effectively. This means that things like phishing, getting users to click on URLs because you're getting those Christmas offers, those Thanksgiving offers at the end of the year where phishing gets super popular and things like that, they are more likely to see this as something that would be tried to exploit. Effectively, what would happen is that Smart Screen would not engage on the device to prevent the download or execution of the file and detection of the thing being malicious if the remote location URL path was inside of a zip file. So if the destination path contained a zip along the way through it, it would just, Smart Screen just wouldn't turn on. It would just be like, yeah, it's fine. I totally trust this file and should download it. A-okay. Patches are out there and available for it. You should absolutely put this on your prioritization radar. This one did score an 8.8, by the way, just as an FYI on that one. Again, and the broad impact of that is, again, it's network-based. It's going to impact your Windows 11, your Windows 10 machines, and things like this towards the end of the year where lots of phishing campaigns are going on right now. It's just a really, really opportune moment for people to try and exploit. Another one. Windows DWM Core Library Elevation of Privilege Vulnerability. This is CVE 2023-36033. Again, that is CVE 2023-36033. Link in the chat for you. Again, case of exploitation has been detected in the wild. Somewhat of a concern, but the big redeeming factor, air quotes, to this one is this one does require somebody to be on the box. It does need to be local. It's not something network based where you can convince somebody to go click on a link to reach across the network to do something, and then as a result get exploitative code on the box. The major scary thing about this is that the end result is that if you do have somebody who walks up and has local access to it, they can walk away with the system token for the box. So you do want to be cognizant of it. You do want to be aware of it, but you do have the saving grace of the fact that if they've already gotten onto the box, you already have a wolf in a hen house situation at that point. Going to move on to a couple other ones. Windows Cloud Files Mini Filter Driver Elevation of Privilege Vulnerability. CVE 2023-36036. Again, that's CVE 2023-36036. Go ahead and put that here in the chat.
Again, anytime the word CVE is said, shot of your favorite energy drink.
Well, you know, I've only got a smoothie, so. Requires local access. This is another one. Again, it is same thing. Exploitation has been detected out there, so it is already out and present in the wild. But it does, again, require local access to the box in order to get it. The last two here, one is a denial of service vulnerability, CVE 2023-36038. Again, that's CVE 2023-36038. Put that in the chat here. This is basically a simple .NET vulnerability. I say simple, but an ASP.NET, where there's a core denial of service vulnerability for it. It is a 7.1. It is a network-based attack. It is still considered as less likely. They aren't seeing it being actively used and abused and brutalized at this point, but it does result in the DDoS, not necessarily an access or a privilege escalation. The last one that I want to talk about here is one that is, for some reason, given a score of 6.5. I have not dug into the details of why it was given a 6.5 exactly, because I'm mildly concerned about it, which is Microsoft Office Security Feature Bypass Vulnerability. And it is CVE 2023-36413. Again, that is CVE 36413. And it is a network exploit. It is currently more likely not active yet. And the big reason for this is that rather, you know how when you get a file and you download it in Outlook and it says, hey, we're in read-only mode, this allows it to bypass going into read-only mode and going directly into edit mode, which means that if you can get an Excel file that automatically opens without having any of the protections ahead of time on it and can get macros to start editing and running on it, this is very, very much so suboptimal.
So move to OpenOffice on that, or?
No, you should just patch it, ideally. So what's the big concern with all the vulnerabilities that we had this month? The big thing that I'm concerned about, more so even than the fact that obviously we all want to go out there, we want to patch everything, is that on average, patch times still across the industry are still relatively slow. The challenge that we have right now is that we are coming up on, for a lot of organizations, a change freeze period due to the holidays, due to end of season, due to end of year. This stack of vulnerabilities coming out right now means that they're most likely going to start getting exploited within about 30 to 45 days. Typically, when an exploit goes public, you see that the exploitation curve starts to grow within about 30 to 60 days of the release of the patch and the vulnerability of it, because they can still get a lot of brutalization then, because any company that is vulnerable to those at that point is likely vulnerable to other things as well. As a result, because of the fact that that ties super well from a timeline perspective of this release cycle into the holiday season, where a lot of IT teams and IT staff will be out of the office for it, odds are super good that organizations will start to see an increase in attacks or an increase in an attempted compromise, basically. All right.
So you're basically just trying to ruin Christmas.
Absolutely. I am unfortunately trying to ruin Christmas.
Wow.
It is an unfortunate set of vulnerabilities to get. Last year, we had the same thing happen. We had a set of like 3 on-prem Exchange infrastructure vulnerabilities that all came out within a month of each other around October, December, and January. And the entire season, I heard nothing from some of my friends in ransomware response about numerous Exchange server breaches and compromises through the entirety of the holiday seasons, because it's a prime opportunity to basically try and get in there. So try and get all your patching done before Christmas. Make a Christmas present to yourself. Don't get hacked. Brings us around to third-party updates. So over this past month, Patch My PC has released about 2,105 new patches this month. Of those 2,105 patches that were released this month, a total number of CVEs was 296. For those of you who like to play score and keep things at home, we did have a few interesting, about a third of those were browser patches, and just kind of some fun statistics here. Chrome this time around had 31 different unique vulnerabilities. Firefox had 13. Microsoft Edge somehow managed to come in with 34 different vulnerabilities. And Opera, I'm still not sure how, had 0 CVEs attached to them along the way, since they also use Chrome for stuff. But nothing that came out that has been really a major 0-day exploit in the third-party side of things this month. And that concludes all of the wonderful news on patches, other than some stuff that I want to touch back on around patching and some security practices when we get into your news segment, Brian.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about them, but okay, sure.
Oh, I am, but I'm going to talk about it when it's your section. I'm going to make sure to interrupt you.
I look forward to this. All right. Thanks, Jordan. I'm going to quickly share my screen if I can figure out how to do it. So this started off yesterday when I was looking around. I was like, oh, there's not a whole lot of news, but boy, it started piling up, as it often does. Shocking, Ignite is going on. So thanks for taking the time to be here instead of Ignite. I'm not really going to try and parse what's going on at Ignite right now, since it's literally actively happening.
Brian, it's just a whole bunch of coming soon, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is. There is a good article here came out yesterday, kind of doing some overview of what's happening in Intune. Shocking. It's all about Copilot and AI. Like that. That's basically. I mean, that's the whole theme of Ignite, is going to be AI is a thing, and we're going to try and figure out a way to make money on it by selling it too. So there is an actual Copilot for Intune that is in private preview and has some. I haven't actually seen the demos, but looks like it has some interesting promise. Whether that stuff really pans out or not, the future will tell us.
Brian, can you throw some of those links in the chat too? I know you just closed the one out, but the future ones.
I sent them all to you. You can do it.
No, you didn't. We're going to pretend that you didn't.
All right, fine.
I appreciate you, sir.
I'm sure you do. the one thing they have talked about already is about auto patch, and this is kind of an interesting tech that I've kind of tried to keep on top of. They've opened up auto patch to frontline workers. So if you have F3 or some of those equivalent licenses, you can use auto patch now. They're talking about some detailed reliability reporting, so specifically post-patch, some monitoring to figure out around your rings whether or not those devices are actually. It's not just did they full-on break, but are apps crashing? Are there performance problems? So they're trying to get some of that information into there. Also, I think a lot of the driver and firmware stuff. I think all of the kind of new things, I think they're going to build into auto patch. I don't know that for sure. I'm kind of making that up. I've spoken several times now at conferences, and I've worked with the driver and firmware team, and they've got a lot of really good feedback. There's some stuff they need to do, and I just have this hunch that a lot of that's going to go into auto patch. But they're also saying something interesting in this article that it'll be interesting to watch. They're sort of now equating auto patch and the Windows Update for Business deployment service, which is intriguing to me. Auto patch, I should clarify, is sort of like auto patch is a service you can subscribe to automatically configure your patching within Intune. The deployment service is sort of like an API around Windows Update. And those have been separate things. Auto patch is built on Intune, and Intune is built on the deployment service. And now they're saying they're the same thing. And what that really means is going to be interesting, because those two things are different. They're in different parts of the org, and they have different licensing requirements. And so I don't know how that's all going to come together when they say that. Moving on, after Ignite, they will do Microsoft will do technical takeoffs. And personally, I'm more interested, and this is why I'm not actively like watching Ignite. And I can get the news after Ignite. It's in a couple of weeks. They'll do the technical takeoff, and this is very specific for Intune. And they're going to have deep dives into all of these. A whole bunch of specific deep dives that are supposed to be in theory live, and so you can have real Q&A, and there will be people that are they're more technical focused than Ignite will be. And so I've kind of come around to the fact that yes, great, Ignite is a thing that's going to happen, and I'll probably hear about it on Twitter and read the blogs. But the technical takeoff the week or two after, that for me is actually now the more interesting thing. The next thing we've announced this, we have Patch My PC has partnered, or we are supporting the PowerShell Application Deployment Toolkit, PADK, as many people know it and love it. We have a webinar later this month. If you have any questions about that, I will tell you that just to head off any obvious questions, like it will continue to be open source. We don't really have any intent or reason to try and monetize this or make it private. Our intent was really to help continue make sure it continues. We're essentially funding it. We've hired one of the first and main developers. He's now on Patch My PC, and he's going to continue working on that, including recently we kind of were able to help with the license, the website refresh and some things there. So if you're interested in this and what's going on and what the plans are for PSADT itself, go ahead and make sure you sign up for our webinar later this month. Last month, we talked about that VB-script is being deprecated. And so I'm not going to go into it too deep, that specific thing. But in the months since, did I not put a link? Yeah, of course I didn't.
I got you on that one, Brian.
No,
it's too late. It's already happened.
Jake, you said it's my responsibility.
It's Pichu, sir.
So again, we're not going to talk about VB-script deprecation. It's a thing that's happening. It's now a feature on demand. But in the last month, there's a couple of things that have there's some fallout for that. So very specifically, we're seeing people that are relying. They may have some VB-script in their boot images in Config Manager, or if you're an MDT user. And well, guess what? Like if you're using the latest ADK, that got the latest cumulative update, which is good because that fixed some security issues. But they've actually removed VB-script because it's a feature on demand. It's no longer in the base operating system. And so this is actually causing a bunch of things to sort of fail in people's boot images. And again, if you're using MDT, I'm seeing people have to go in and basically modify their boot images to add this feature on demand back in. The other thing is it's impacting PowerShell application deployment toolkit. There's some VB script in there. I actually don't 100% know why, but it is, and so I know that they're working on it. So again, just there's some fallout around that. The next thing I want to talk about.
I could tell that was Johan Aardmark's lab just from the names of the VMs in the screenshot.
Yeah, sorry, I should do credit where credit is due. That was Johan Aardmark, and I'm going to post these in here. Two other things that have happened based on this month's releases. We're actually seeing Microsoft Defender Antivirus. They actually have the channel information is now being shown, and this is in Config Manager. So they actually now have these different channels to deal with. So if you're deploying these, you may want to go in and decline the updates if you're not using data channel, but or because there's really just 4 times as many. I don't know, like we're going to have to see what happens in coming months. But this is a new thing that's happening this month, that there's actually channels here for Defender. Moving on, we're going to go back for a hot second into some stuff that happened. Oh, no, sorry. This is featured. This is really esoteric, and I don't think most people will care, but Microsoft is doing it, so let's go ahead and call it out. They are going to cease for Windows 11 22H2 that early next year they're going to stop doing D-week releases, which are the preview or optional updates. I don't know why they're doing this. It seems strange to me, but if you somehow care about optional updates, they are apparently going away. Another interesting thing that I learned, and so I'm just going to share, which is apparently in new builds of Windows 11, the remote desktop connection app is actually going to be like an actual separate application that you can remove and then you can also install, which is just strange to me. It's been there for, as long as I can remember being an IT admin, you'd always have remote desktop connection. That may not be true in future releases. So just a heads up. I don't think that's a big deal, but I'm just calling it out. And then update, I'm going to do an update on 2 updates from October. One is that in October, Microsoft released a standalone servicing stack update. And that was sort of confusing to some people because a couple years ago, Microsoft took those servicing stack updates and integrated them with the cumulative update each month. And so people are like, well, do I need to deploy this? And, what the heck do I do with this? And the answer is no. I've confirmed with a few people that no, you do not need to actively deploy this specific standalone update. The cumulative update of October and November will include the correct SSU. And in fact, if you only install the cumulative update, this standalone update will in fact report itself as installed within Config Manager. So last month we talked about this and I was like, I don't think you need to do anything with that. We have actually had confirmation in this month that this is true. This is only a thing if you are going to go and build media back from the release from manufacturing. So if you're downloading an ISO from Microsoft that's unpatched, you will need to go take this standalone servicing stack update and install that to make sure you can continue to further patch that OS as you go along. And then another one that I want to call out is last month, there was a lot of errors. I heard several people having this known issue, error 80.007.00 invalid error invalid data. That is fixed in November. So November's releases do fix this issue. This was a known issue, had a known issue rollback. I had several people reach out to me and tell me that they were impacted. And so Microsoft has come out and said officially that they have fixed this. But of course, we probably won't know for another couple of days if that's true or not. But supposedly that is fixed. The last thing I'm going to talk about then, before Jordan starts interrupting me, is Microsoft did this beautiful little post. Patch Tuesday has reached 20 years old. I'm not going to sit here and read this post, but it's a fun little walk down memory lane by John Cable, who's been around long enough to sort of remember some of these things. So that's all I have. Jordan, what do you want to yell at me about?
So there is one other piece of news, Brian, I think that we should talk about, that we kind of talked a little bit about in Miami actually recently. We were at a conference when it came out, and we talked earlier about a little history trip down memory lane. Anybody here, or hopefully people here, remember this small thing that happened with SolarWinds, and I think it was called Sunburst was the specific name of the attack back in 2018. Well, turns out that there was some concerns around that with the SEC, and there is an active lawsuit currently going there. Now, this is one of, I believe, the first times that we have really seen a large-scale legal effort as the result of a cyber attack against a publicly traded company or against a software vendor that had an oopsie moment that did something. So it is going to be, thank you for providing the link there. For it, also an entire PDF. It is about 70 pages long. It's very, very interesting to go through and read. I have a link for that here somewhere. If you give me 2 seconds,
I can't tell if you were saying that with a straight face or did you
the
actually read all
68
70
pages?
plus?
I had 68 pages, and I read all 68 pages of it and didn't fall asleep. I promise. So it's pretty interesting to read, and even more relevant recently is that earlier this week, SolarWinds released a official response to it. So it is interesting. It is something that's out there. It is something that is kind of groundbreaking in terms of like what we're going to see and how it is going to progress. The short version of it, for people who, if anybody here has not kind of looked at it behind the scenes or has kind of tried to forget about it, is there were some small security issues that resulted in a supply chain attack against SolarWinds. And that was then leveraged to try to launch software and to try and launch new vulnerabilities into a ton of other companies and institutions utilizing it. Many, many years later, time has now gone by. Everything has since settled down largely from it, but we're still seeing the ripple effect of it in the format of questionnaires and things like, are you a supply chain risk? And how do they try to minimize supply chain risks? And now this new legal component is coming. The big concern and interesting thing for those of you on the security side of the aisle here is going to be that going forward, what does this mean for organizations and the level of scrutiny, especially for people in IT and security who work at publicly traded companies? So it's definitely something to keep an eye on, because as a direct result, either of who knows from the SEC or any other regulation, I'm not a lawyer, I don't pretend to be one, it's going to be interesting to see what type of new regulations. Right now.
You can't say
that doesn't mean I'm a lawyer.
When you got the little
I could be a car
thing
salesman
in the pocket and everything and a tie clip. Don't tell me like you're not
You know,
pretending to be a lawyer right now.
It's fine. Did you just lawyer me? Anyways,
Yes.
no.
Lawyer.
So if you are, well, it is definitely, if you work for a company that's publicly traded, or if you work on the security side of things, I would for sure recommend following along with this and keeping an eye on it. It will be interesting to see what type of legislation and what type of different pieces of regulation come about as a result of this. There's definitely been, since SolarWinds has come about, an increase in cost to organizations and businesses around the practices that they have to adhere to along the way. And it's just going to continue to grow as a result of it, as companies get scared or as organizations question whether they will then fall under what rocks this potentially flips over.
Right. Yeah. And the interesting thing about, to me, when I was reading into like the SEC's complaint, I didn't read 68 pages, but is that, like there was internal discussion, in discovery, like it was clear that there were people in the org that knew they had issues. And it puts pay to like, get shit written down. Like that, if you know something is wrong, like make sure it's written down. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but it is important to say, hey, this is wrong, and we have to recognize it's wrong. And that's the chilling effect of this SE thing is like, oh, like that's going to put pay to that whole thing of like, no, we actually knew, and we weren't we were in theory, right? The charge is that they knew that they had issues, and there was internal documentation and discussion about these issues, but externally they said otherwise. I mean, that's the charge here, and that's going to freak out a lot of people. Should freak out a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we done there, Jordan?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you. All right, so we are going to introduce to you George Williams. He is from our UK team. He is a software developer who works on our Advanced Insights, which is our reporting platform. And he went off. We've had this issue, and he got super excited about it and went off and started building a proof of concept. And then we dogpiled on it, the poor guy, and said, well, could it do this? Could it do that? Could it do this other thing? And instead of rage quitting like he should have, or updated his resume, he actually went and built the thing. So we're going to give him a hot second to show what it is. We're all kind of super excited about it. So take it away, George.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'll just share my screen here. Can we all see that?
It's beautiful.
Loud and clear.
Good. Right.
Native dark mode.
Yeah. It's got to be dark mode, hasn't it? So we wanted to take some time at the end there to just share this return on investment tool that we've been working on. So the reason why we create this tool is to allow you to scan your config manager or your Intune environment to basically work out exactly how many apps exist in your environment that the publisher can automate for you. And then from that, the number of apps that we find generate some return on investment data. So prior to this tool existing, the only way to be able to perform this type of scan would be through the publisher itself. But obviously that requires you to have the publisher installed and set up the publisher. So we wanted to provide like a lightweight method of being able to perform this type of scan for people who don't have the publisher. So, but that being said, this tool is going to be available to everyone. And even though it's sort of geared towards potential customers, people who don't have the publisher, even people who have the publisher might find it useful if they're looking for any sort of cost justification or anything like that. So I'll just show you how that works. So the config manager scan is pretty simple. You'd take this tool and you'd copy it to your SMS provider server, which is by default either going to be your primary site or your CAS. There are some edge case scenarios where that's not the case, but if it's not the case, then you've specifically set that up, so you probably know which server. And you just launch this tool. It doesn't require an install or anything like that. It's just a portable exe. You double click it, this opens up, and you click Scan Config Manager. And provided that the user that you've launched the tool as has access to the console in sort of any capacity, as long as it's got read access, then that scan knows what to do, and it goes off and finds the relevant information and populates these stats up at the top that you see here. So we're not going to Scan Config Manager. We're going to scan Intune today. And for that, there's just you provide it a account that has read access to Intune devices. So I'm going to choose this account here. And also your account has to have permissions to be able to approve the requested permissions for this application to read that data in Intune to be able to scan, which I believe that's the application administrator role in Azure at minimum. But
if you need to grant admin consent, it needs to be GA, but yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah. If you want to do, you can approve. I've tested it. If you want to approve it just for your user specifically,
correct. Yeah.
Then yeah, you only need the admin application role. So, but there's a full explanation of all the roles that you need in this link in the bottom corner of the documentation. But they're all pretty, they're pretty minimal roles that I'd expect if any of you are Intune or config manager admins, I'd expect most of you to have those roles. So that scans.
Would it be fair to say if you can create or edit apps, you can almost certainly run this tool? I mean,
much, yeah.
I know there's going to be edge cases. Somebody's going to find out, like, not a thing.
I'd say 99% of people won't have a problem running this tool. Yeah.
Right.
So So this scan's completed, and there's this table gets populated with the specific apps that we found, and then so we found 129 applications in our tenant that are supported by the catalog, and then so we're using that number along with the figures down here to generate the estimated cost saving potential of using the publisher. So all the numbers that are used to calculate those figures up at the top are visible in this tool, and they're editable as well. So I don't know how well you can read this in the bottom corner, but these are the figures that we're using to calculate, which are the average updates per app per year, the hours required to package a single application, and then like how much does that cost per hour of packaging. So if you disagreed with any of those figures that we pre-populated with our estimates, then you can change that, and that reflects the change up there. So if you think, no, it doesn't take me 4 hours, it takes me 2, then you can type that in. Or if it was me, I'd probably put 8, because that's how long it'd take me. And that's pretty much it. We generate you an estimated quote as well, and that's just based on the device count in your tenant, along with your license selection. And we take the quote into consideration when generating the cost saving stat. So you can see if I change my license selection from premium to plus, then the cost saving stat changes as well with that. And then that is, that's pretty much it. It's a pretty simple tool, but hopefully something that people find interesting and useful data there for people who are looking for cost justification.
Yeah, absolutely. I talk to people a lot. That Patch by PC, one of our strengths is usually paper napkin math, right? You can kind of figure these things out. And we had some of this data out there. We had run some polls and talked to administrators. How many apps do you have? How to try and figure out these numbers. But like at the end of the day, it's really important. The real value is like, well, how many of our apps in our catalog are actually in your environment, and how much do you guys pay, and how much time do you think it does? We wanted, and that's really hard to do in a static or even a dynamic web page. And so we kind of threw this at George, and he like really ran with it. And I also say it looks beautiful as someone who doesn't know how to build beautiful UI. This looks very nice. So my hat's off to George, and you killed it. Do you have any thoughts, George?
This is available for everyone, by the way, and we'll put a link to the download in the chat.
And I think like your George, you mentioned this, but I don't know if you mentioned it. Like this is standalone, right? Like this is anyone can download this, and you can there's not like you don't even have to install it, right?
There's no install. It doesn't require you to even have the publisher or anything like that. And the only thing that you need to provide it is if you're scanning Intune, you need to provide it an account, and that's it. Yeah.
Right. And and that's not, and that will often be your own account, right? So whatever account you're using.
Yeah, and often it'll be whatever account you want. Yeah.
Right, and this will, as we start adding, this grabs a catalog, right? Like this is live. It's not like
so if we update the catalog with new products, this tool it's smart, so it goes and gets the latest version of whatever but you can select from the table and copy.
Can you control A, control C, control V?
You can control A, control C, control V. Yeah.
In a future release, George, can you let me select individual apps and change the average updates per year? Because I'm pretty sure Google Chrome does at least 8 releases a week.
I know. Here's what we want to do, Jake. Right? Like long term, we should know that. So I don't want our users to have to change it. But
fair, yeah.
It's potentially something you could put in the products catalog.
Well, I'm just saying we have the data to know how many times we've released an update for each of our apps, right? And I don't think today we really track that. I don't think we have that in any bit, but we should absolutely track those things. And
You getting a cold there, Jordan? You okay?
and put that in here, right, Jordan? Right, Jordan? Do you want to introduce? Do you want to talk about anything? No.
No, I don't want to talk about it yet. No. But
Okay.
Soon. Sorry,
Soon,
what?
right. But my point there is, you ask a great question, Jake, of like, oh, okay, but what you're saying is average updates per app per year is not universal, right? There's 129 apps. Some of those, if you have the one that always stands out is Adobe Digital Editions. I think we haven't seen enough. People still use it. It's like still literally a thing you have to use for some Adobe ebooks and things like that, unless you have a Nook reader. I don't think it's seen a release in years. So, and then Chrome, which is like we say, like multiple times a week. Yeah, right. So, so absolutely, we have that information, and we should build that into here, and we will at some point.
Is the information it's gathering from Configuration Manager or Intune, is it specifically the stuff that you are patching, or is it just a general gathering of any possible application that matches up with Patch My PC that could be patched?
Yeah, the second one. Yeah. So anything that this doesn't require the publisher to be implemented to work. So essentially, how this is working, like behind the scenes, is it's reading inventory data from all your devices, which basically the add remove program data, and then matching all that add remove program data to our catalog. So where we find, if a user has Zoom on their program, regardless of whether you've deployed that before, we're showing you that you have a user with Zoom or you have users with Zoom, and we can patch that for you.
That is very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, and so I think the crux there, George, right, is this 129 apps we say, those are apps that are in our catalog. It's not like, right, that's not, you don't have, it's not just that you have 129 apps in your environment.
129 apps that we can support.
We can patch. Whether you're doing it now or not is irrelevant. And that's all because it's geared towards those early conversations of, okay, like, how do you sell this? How do you sell Patch My PC to your organization, and which usually means talking to people way above you. And sometimes, the good management will care about reducing your workload so you can do other things. Sometimes that's a far more difficult thing. And so we wanted to give a very visceral, hey, this isn't us just making up numbers. You can literally, here's the 129 apps, and here's the quote
to your case, right. and even the figures that we've used to calculate are based on what you've typed in. So it's
just thanks again for joining us, and have a great Thanksgiving if you're in the US.
Here, download this file from the internet and run it. Trust us, it's fine. After we just finished telling you about malicious.
Don't forget to scan this QR code while you're at it.